Okay, so get this right. The package killer. I mean, it doesn't exactly sound like something, something that sends chills down your spine, right? But that kind of mundane name actually hides a truly disturbing story. We're talking about Gary Muehlberg, a man who, well, he managed to live a seemingly pretty ordinary life, but at the same time, he was committing this series of really horrific murders. And, you guys specifically asked us to unpack this case. So here we are, diving into the life and the crimes of Gary Muehlberg, and also how he managed to evade justice for, like, decades.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cases that, it really gets under your skin. Just the idea that someone could be living this double life, right? Hiding such darkness under this like veneer of normalcy. It's unsettling for sure. But I think it's really important to delve into these cases to try and understand like the hows and the whys.
Exactly, and to try to learn from them. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Go back to Muehlberg's beginnings. From what I've read, his early life seemed like pretty average. Grew up in Missouri, served in the military, even had an early marriage. Makes you wonder, at what point did things take such a dark turn?
Well, one of the things that really struck me was this incident back in 1972. In Salina, Kansas, Muehlberg was arrested for a robbery and the rape of an 18-year-old woman. He actually tried to use the insanity plea, but ultimately ended up being convicted on that robbery charge. What's really fascinating here is that this early crime, it might offer us a little glimpse into his psychological makeup.
So you're saying this wasn't just like a one-off incident. It could be a sign of something deeper.
Exactly. It raises questions about escalating patterns of violence and also the effectiveness of that insanity defense. Think about it. He was willing to use that defense, which suggests a calculated attempt to manipulate the legal system. And sadly, that pattern of violence. Well, it didn't end there. Not long after this, he was arrested again, this time for assaulting a 14-year-old girl. He threatened her with a knife, bound and gagged her. Thankfully, she was rescued. But Muehlberg served time for this crime.
It's like these early defenses were flashing warning signs, but somehow they didn't stop him from continuing down this path of violence.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought, isn't it? And what even more unsettling is that after his release from prison, Muehlberg, he seemed to make an attempt at building a normal life. He went to college, got married again, and even worked as a teacher. So you have to wonder, was this like a genuine effort to reform, or simply a calculated facade?
A classic case of a double life, maybe trying to bury his past under this layer of like respectability.
It's certainly possible, but it seems like the pull of his darker impulses, it was just too strong. Muehlberg struggled to hold down jobs. He faced financial difficulties, and eventually he fell back into this world of drugs and prostitution, both dealing and using, this downward spiral.
Well, it seems to have been a pretty significant catalyst for his later crimes.
Okay, so we've got this buildup of instability and darkness in Muehlberg's life. And then in 1990, things take a truly horrific turn with the disappearance of 18-year-old Robin Meehan. This is where the story of the package killer really begins. Yeah, Robin's story is it's heartbreaking. She was a young mother, battling addiction, working as a prostitute to survive. And there's this detail that really stuck with me. She and her friend, they had this safety pack. They'd always let each other know their locations, write down each other's license plates, things like that. It just shows the constant danger they were living with.
And tragically, in Robin's case, that pact was broken. She got into Muehlberg's car and was never seen alive again.
Right. Her body was later discovered along a highway, and this is where the package part comes in. Her body was tied between two mattresses. It seems like such an ordinary detail, right? But it ended up being this crucial clue in linking Muehlberg to other victims.
So you're saying these mattresses weren't just a random choice. They were like a signature of sorts.
That's what investigators started to realize. And then just a few months later, another body was found, this time wrapped in a trash can. It was Glenda Cruitt, a 27-year-old woman who had also disappeared. And guess what? They found Connex electrical cable used to bind her body, the same type of cable found with the mattresses in Robin's case.
Wow, so that seemingly insignificant detail suddenly becomes this major red flag connecting these two cases.
Exactly. It's like a calling card. And it didn't stop there. More victims started to emerge, each with similar chilling details. Donna Reitmeyer, a 40-year-old mother of three, and Sandy Little, a 21-year-old who had spent much of her life in foster care. It became clear that they were dealing with a serial killer.
It's terrifying to think of one person could be responsible for so much, pain and suffering. And the brutality of the murders themselves. I mean, it was just horrific, right? Beatings, stabbing, strangulation. It's hard to even imagine.
It really is. And remember the dog hair? The dog hair found on some of the victims. Well, when Muehlberg eventually confessed, he admitted to having a dog during that time. Just another piece of the puzzle falling into place.
So many seemingly unrelated details all pointing back to him. But what really stuck with me was his confession about keeping one victim's remains in his basement. He kept them in a box for a while, then later moved them to a steel drum. How can someone do something like that?
Well, that level of detachment, it's a hallmark of many serial killers called compartmentalization. They're able to separate these horrific acts from their everyday lives, creating this like psychological distance that allows them to function without being, constantly consumed by guilt or remorse.
It's a chilling thought, like a glimpse into this dark and twisted mind.
And it highlights just how complex and challenging these cases can be to understand, let alone solve.
Okay, so we've established a pattern of violence, a signature, and a chilling glimpse into Muehlberg's psyche. But what about the murder that finally led to his arrest? The murder of Kenneth Atchison in 1993. This one seemed different from the others. Muehlberg didn't target, a woman on the street. He lured Atchison, a 57-year-old man, to his home with the promise of a car sale.
That's right. And this case, it marked a turning point in the investigation. Unlike the previous murders, there were witnesses who saw Atchison going to Muehlberg's house. And then there's the detail about the crude coffin found in his basement.
Yeah, what was up with that? It seems like there was a level of premeditation in Atchison's murder that we didn't see in the others.
Right, and it was Atchison's murder that finally led to Muehlberg's arrest. Police received a tip from a friend of his who had been asked to build the coffin. And when they went to arrest Muehlberg, well, they discovered Atchison's body in the basement.
So finally, the pieces start falling into place, leading to his capture. But even then, Muehlberg didn't go down without a fight, right? He tried to frame these two brothers, Chuck and Wilton Nichols, for the murder, even claiming they had killed Atchison during an argument.
Yeah, classic manipulation tactic. He even pointed police towards the murder weapon, which they found at Wilton Nichols' house. It was a desperate attempt to shift the blame and escape accountability.
Wow, talk about a web of deceit. So did his plan work? Did the Nichols brothers take the fall for Atchison's murder?
Not entirely. Well, the Nichols brothers were involved in drug trafficking and ultimately convicted on those charges. Muehlberg was the one found guilty of Atchison's murder in 1995 and sentenced to life without parole. But at this point, the mystery of the other murders remained unsolved.
It's like he got away with murder, multiple murders, for years. Until, of course, advancements in DNA technology changed everything.
Exactly. It wasn't until 2022, decades after the crimes, that DNA evidence finally linked Muehlberg to those earlier murders. And that's when the full scope of his horrifying acts came to light. He confessed to the murders of Robin Meehan, Brenda Pruitt, Donna Reitmeyer, and Sandy Little, adding 4 more life sentences to his already pretty bleak future.
Justice delayed, but thankfully not denied.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of forensic science in bringing closure, even after all these years. But this is just the beginning of our deep dive. There's so much more to unpack here.
You're right. We've got Muehlberg's confession to explore, the psychological complexities of his crimes, and the lasting impact on the victims' families. Let's delve into those deeper layers in just a moment. It's one thing to hear about the crimes themselves, but when you really delve into those details of Muehlberg's confession, it paints an even more disturbing picture. Really, he didn't just admit to the murders. He shared all these graphic details that they really reveal a chilling detachment from the humanity of his victims.
It's true. What's particularly striking, I think, is the way he talked about keeping one victim's remains in his basement for an extended period, first in a box and then later in the steel drum. It raises all sorts of questions about what kind of psychological mechanisms allow a person to compartmentalize such horrific acts.
I mean, how do you even begin to wrap your head around that? It's like something out of a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a fascinating and deeply disturbing aspect of serial killer psychology. They often exhibit this ability to compartmentalize, right? To separate these horrific acts from their everyday lives, almost as if they create this mental wall, allowing them to function normally, while harboring this unimaginable darkness within.
When in a way, it's like a survival mechanism, like a twisted way of protecting themselves from that overwhelming guilt and the horror of what they've done.
Precisely. And it's often coupled with this profound lack of empathy, which allows them to kind of dehumanize their victims, to view them as objects rather than, people with lives, family, feelings. This lack of empathy is it's really a key factor in their ability to, commit these acts without experiencing genuine remorse.
And remember, he only confessed to these crimes after being confronted with that irrefutable DNA evidence.
Right, which brings us to a crucial question. Could there be, more victims out there? Muehlberg, he only admitted to the murders that were directly linked to him through DNA. But given his history, it's entirely possible that there are other unsolved cases out there that could be connected to him. And this is a chilling reality, really, for investigators, and a source of ongoing anxiety for families. Families who may never know the truth about their loved ones' disappearances.
It's a haunting thought, and as we piece together Muehlberg's life and crimes, it's natural to search for those explanations, to try and understand what drove him to commit such horrific acts. I keep coming back to those early offenses, the robbery and the rape, the assault on the young girl. Do you think those were like missed opportunities for intervention? Could something have been done to prevent his descent into violence?
It's a question that often arises in these cases, right? And it's impossible to say for certain whether early intervention would have altered his trajectory. However, those early crimes, they do highlight the importance of taking even seemingly minor offenses seriously. They can be indicators of deeper psychological issues that if left unaddressed might escalate into more severe forms of violence.
It's like a domino effect, one act leading to another until the consequences become devastating.
Exactly. And then there's the fact that Muehlberg was able to function in society for so long, right? Holding down jobs, getting married. It's a sobering reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that even those who appear normal and harmless can be capable of unspeakable acts.
It really makes you question how well you can ever truly know someone.
Yes, and it underscores the need for vigilance, for being aware of potential red flags in behavior, and for taking steps to protect ourselves and our communities. But it's important to remember that while we need to be vigilant, we shouldn't live in fear.
That's a good point. Awareness, not paranoia. But let's get back to Muehlberg for a second. What about the impact of his crimes on the victims' families? We've talked a lot about him, but their stories are equally important.
Absolutely, the ripple effects of these crimes, they're profound. The families of Robin Meehan, Brenda Pruitt, Donna Reitmeyer, and Sandy Little, they endured years of uncertainty, not knowing what happened to their loved ones. Imagine the agony of not knowing, the constant searching and hoping, only to be met with the devastating news that they were murdered.
And then to add insult to injury, the killer was already behind bars for another murder, living his life, while they were left to grieve and wonder.
Yeah, the sense of injustice, it must be overwhelming. And even after Muehlberg's confession, the healing process, well, it's long and complex. There's the trauma of the loss, the anger towards the perpetrator, and the struggle to rebuild their lives amidst such unimaginable pain. These families, they deserve our empathy and support.
They absolutely do, and their stories remind us that behind the headlines and the legal proceedings, there are real people whose lives have been shattered by these acts of violence. It's important to keep that human element at the forefront of our discussion.
You're right. These aren't just abstract cases. They represent profound losses that leave, lasting scars on individuals, families, and entire communities.
And let's not forget the role of law enforcement in this case, right? It took decades to finally connect Muehlberg to all the murders, and that was largely due to advancements in DNA technology.
Yes, this case is it's really a testament to the power of forensic science and the dedication of those investigators who never give up on seeking justice. The breakthroughs in DNA analysis have revolutionized the way we solve crimes, providing this level of certainty and accuracy that wasn't possible in the past. And it gives hope to those seeking answers in cold cases, demonstrating that even after years or even decades, the truth can still be uncovered.
It's like a glimmer of light in the darkness. But speaking of darkness, let's talk about that plea deal. The plea deal Muehlberg accepted to avoid the death penalty. He cited his failing health as the reason. Does that feel like true justice to you?
That's a complex question, and there are no easy answers. For some, the death penalty might seem like the only fitting punishment. For someone who has committed such heinous acts, it's seen as a way to bring closure, to balance the scales of justice.
But for others, it raises ethical concerns, right? Is it ever right to take a life, even in the name of justice? And does it truly bring closure, or does it just perpetuate this cycle of violence?
Those are questions that society continues to grapple with, and ultimately the decision of whether or not to pursue the death penalty is often influenced by this complex interplay of factors, including the nature of the crime, the legal precedent, and the prevailing social and political climate.
In Muehlberg's case, the plea deal meant he would, and then the rest of his life in prison, but it also meant he would be spared that ultimate punishment. It's a decision that likely brought some mixed emotions for the victims' families.
I'm sure it did. For some, it might feel like a betrayal, as if his life is somehow being valued over the lives that he took. For others, it might bring a sense of relief, knowing that he'll never be free to harm anyone again. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's a deeply personal response to a complex and painful situation.
It's interesting how this case forces us to confront, not only the darkness of Muehlberg's actions, but also the complexities of the justice system and the ethical dilemmas we face as a society.
You're absolutely right. It's a stark reminder that while we strive for justice, the path to achieving it is rarely straightforward. And even when a perpetrator is caught and punished, there are still so many questions left unanswered, so much pain left to heal.
It's a heavy topic, but I think it's important to have these conversations, to learn from these cases, to understand the complexities of human behavior, and to work towards creating a safer and more just world.
I completely agree. By examining these dark chapters in human history, we can gain valuable insights that might help us prevent future tragedies.
And you know what I find especially fascinating about this case is how it highlights that duality of human nature. Muehlberg was, by all accounts, a seemingly ordinary man who lived this double life. He was able to blend into society, to appear normal and harmless, while harboring this incredibly dark side. It's a chilling reminder that we can never truly know what lies beneath the surface.
You hit the nail on the head, and that's what makes this case so compelling, so unsettling. It challenges our assumptions about good and evil, about our ability to judge character, and about the very nature of humanity itself.
I think that's a perfect segue into our final thoughts on this case. What are your takeaways? What stands out to you as the most important lessons that we can learn from this story of Gary Muehlberg, the package killer?
To me, the most significant takeaway is the power of forensic science. This case, it would likely have remained unsolved if not for those advancements in DNA technology. It's a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, justice can prevail, even after decades have passed.
It's a powerful message of hope for those seeking answers in cold cases. But beyond that, beyond the forensic aspect, what about that? What about the human element? What can we learn from Muehlberg's life and crimes that might help us prevent future tragedies?
Hmm. That's where things get more complex. I think it's crucial to be aware of those red flags, right? The red flags that might indicate a potential for violence, early intervention, addressing even seemingly minor offenses seriously could potentially make a difference.
And let's not forget the importance of, supporting victims and their families. The trauma that they endure, it's unimaginable, and they deserve our empathy, resources, and ongoing support as they navigate that, long and painful journey of healing.
You're absolutely right. Their stories, they're a poignant reminder of the human cost of these crimes, the lasting impact that ripples outwards from the epicenter of violence.
It's a sobering thought. And as we wrap up our deep dive into the case of Gary Muehlberg, I think it's important to acknowledge the darkness that we've encountered, to recognize that evil exists in the world, but also to hold on to hope, to believe that even in the face of such horror, there's always potential for good to prevail.
Well said. And to our listener, we leave you with this: what can we as individuals and as a society do to create a safer world? How can we better understand and address the factors that contribute to violence? It's a question worth pondering, a conversation worth continuing.
Because while the capture of a perpetrator like Gary Muehlberg, it brings a sense of closure. It also underscores the enduring impact of his crimes, reminding us of the importance of ongoing vigilance, empathy, and the pursuit of justice.
Exactly, and that's what makes these deep dives so valuable. They challenge us to confront difficult truths, to ask tough questions, and to engage in those meaningful dialogues that might ultimately lead to positive change.
This has been a heavy one, but thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the dark world of the package killer. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. It's unsettling, to think that someone like Muehlberg could just like exist alongside us, appearing so ordinary, but harboring such darkness. It makes you wonder, how well can we ever truly know anyone?
Yeah, that's really the most disturbing aspect of these cases, isn't it? I mean, Muehlberg's story, it's like this stark reminder of just how complex human nature can be. The potential for evil to be lurking even in these seemingly like unremarkable individuals.
And it leaves us with so many questions, like, could any of this have been, prevented? Were there any like missed opportunities to step in, signs that were just overlooked?
Those are the questions that always linger in cases like this, right? It's natural to want to search for answers, try to make sense of something that just seems unthinkable. But sometimes there just aren't any easy explanations. We can analyze the risk factors, the warning signs, but predicting human behavior like with absolute certainty, that remains elusive.
I keep thinking about those early offenses, the robbery and the rape, the assault. What if those incidents have been treated as like more than just these isolated events? You think a different approach could have potentially, changed his path?
It's impossible to say for sure, but those early crimes, they really do underscore the importance of a more comprehensive approach, you know, to criminal justice, recognizing those patterns of behavior, addressing those underlying psychological issues, and providing effective rehab programs. I mean, those are crucial steps, right, in preventing violence in the future.
So it's like we need to like look beyond just the immediate offense, right? And try to understand the root causes, the underlying factors that kind of contribute to criminal behavior in general.
Precisely. And this applies not only to violent crimes, but to all forms of criminal activity, right? Addressing societal issues like poverty, addiction, lack of access to, mental health services. I mean, these things they can go a long way in preventing crime in the first place.
So it's this multifaceted approach. We gotta tackle this problem from all these different angles, right? But let's circle back to Muehlberg for a minute. The fact that he was able to function in society for so long, holding down jobs, getting married, it's incredibly unsettling, really. It really drives home how appearances can be so deceiving.
It's a sobering reminder, that's for sure. Evil, it doesn't always wear a mask. It could be hiding in plain sight, concealed by that facade of normalcy This case, it challenges us to be more discerning, right? To pay attention to those subtle cues, to trust our instincts when something just feels off.
It's a delicate balance, though, isn't it? I mean, we don't want to live in this constant state of suspicion, but we do need to be aware of those potential dangers.
You're right. It's about awareness, not not a paranoia. It's about being informed, being vigilant, but not not letting fear dictate our lives.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about Muehlberg, his crimes, the psychology behind all of it. But what about the victims? I mean, their stories, they often get kind of lost in the shuffle, right? Overshadowed by the notoriety of the perpetrator.
You bring up a crucial point. The victims and their families, they're the true heart of this whole story, aren't they? They're the ones who have to carry that unimaginable burden of loss and grief. Their stories need to be heard, their pain needs to be acknowledged, and their resilience needs to be honored.
Yeah, I mean, their experiences also offer valuable insights. Understanding the impact of these crimes, the ripple effects that extend, so far beyond just the immediate victims. I mean, that can help us develop more effective support systems, and prevention strategy.
Absolutely. Listening to the stories of survivors, understanding their journeys of healing and resilience, I mean, that can be incredibly powerful. Their voices, they can help us to build a more compassionate and just society, one that prioritizes the needs of victims and their families.
And speaking of justice, this case wouldn't have been solved without those advancements in forensic science, right? Specifically, DNA technology. It's amazing how like a single strain of hair or just a drop of blood can like unlock these secrets of a crime, even decades later.
It's truly remarkable. DNA evidence has, it's revolutionized criminal justice, providing this level of certainty that was just unimaginable, really, just a few decades ago. And it's given hope to countless families who are seeking answers in those cold cases, demonstrating that even when all other leads have been completely exhausted, science can still illuminate the path to truth and justice.
It's a powerful testament to the ingenuity and the perseverance of the scientific community. But let's talk about the ethical considerations, right? Surrounding Muehlberg's case, he was offered and he accepted a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, citing his declining health. Does that feel like true justice to you?
That's a complex question, isn't it? And there are no easy answers. The death penalty, it's a deeply divisive issue with very strong arguments on both sides. Some believe that it's the only appropriate punishment for certain crimes, a way to ensure that the punishment truly fits the severity of the offense. Others see it as cruel and unusual, arguing that the state should never have the power to take a life, regardless of the circumstances.
And then there's the whole question of, whether the death penalty actually deters crime, right? Or even brings closure to the families of the victims. There's no clear consensus on those issues either.
You're right. The death penalty debate, it's nuanced and emotionally charged, often influenced by personal beliefs, religious convictions, societal values. It's a conversation that needs to continue, one that requires careful consideration of all perspectives.
And it's a conversation that extends, beyond just the specific case, right? The ethical dilemmas around, punishment, rehabilitation, the pursuit of justice. I mean, those are relevant to all aspects of the criminal justice system.
Precisely. And that's what makes these deep dives so valuable. They challenge us to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to engage in those thoughtful discussions about these complex issues that really impact all of us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into this disturbing world of the package killer, what are your final thoughts for our listener? What are the key takeaways that you think they should really be pondering as they reflect on this whole case?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to never forget the victims. Their stories should never be forgotten. Their lives should be honored, and their families should be supported.
Absolutely. Their experiences serve as this really stark reminder of the human cost of violence, the devastating ripple effects that extend far beyond those immediate victims.
Beyond that, I think this case highlights just how important vigilance is and awareness, early intervention. By understanding those, those risk factors, the warning signs, and the psychological complexities that contribute to criminal behavior, we can potentially prevent these future tragedies from happening.
And let's not forget the power of forensic science, right? The advancements in DNA technology, I mean, those have been a real game changer for criminal justice. They provide this level of certainty and accuracy that was, well, it was previously unimaginable, really. It's this beacon of hope, for those seeking answers in cold cases. It demonstrates that even after decades have passed, the truth can still be revealed.
You're right. And while we may never fully understand the depths of that human darkness, cases like this